Netflix's Ozark returned to the Emmy race in a big way this season. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, and with me now is Jason Bateman. He's nominated for acting, directing, and producing the series. Jason, let me just start off by asking you, this is the second year in a row you've gotten in for acting and directing Ozark, but now the show's in. Laura Linney and Julia Garner are both in as well. You've gotten a bunch of nominations elsewhere. What does it mean for you, not just for you personally to get these nominations, but for the show itself, which is obviously somewhat of a passion project for you, to get recognized across the board in this way?
Well, it's obviously it's the cliche of it being great for everybody and everybody's input is apt here. It's the reason it's a cliche. It is really nice to get attention for the whole show, and obviously any of these nominations are impossible without everybody's contribution. So that part is fantastic. But the thing that struck me from the very beginning about the kind of reception that we got, the number of people that were watching the show is just how lucky we are that people find this show. There's so many people that make great shows that it's just, you just feel very, very fortunate that people choose to watch this show. I mean, I can think of a half a dozen shows that are great that people just don't find, either because it's not on a service that people watch or a channel that people can find, or we're lucky that people are watching what we're doing.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, going back to the beginning, what about this show in particular? Because you are such a driving creative force behind it. What about this show spoke to you in a personal way?
Well, the draw to the show really was as a director. I read the first two episodes that were written by Bill Dubuque, and it was like this dark, moody, crime kind of thing. And I was looking for a film to direct, and I was excited about this type of material. And the fact that it was an ongoing show was a tough thing to kind of get my head around. But I said, well, if they let me direct all the episodes, that would really constitute this challenge that I was looking for by trying to bite off a big film. And that's a much bigger challenge than I was really looking for, directing a 600-page movie. But then obviously, as we tried to map out all pre-production and budget and stuff like that, it became impossible for me to be able to do them all. But directing those first two and the last two there in the first season was stretched me right to the edges of what I thought I could handle. And thankfully, we pulled together a great crew and cast that helped me through all that.
In terms of playing Marty Byrde as well, it's a really interesting character. I mean, you look at who he was in the very first episode and who he's become in the second season. Tell us a little bit about the way that Marty Byrde has grown and developed, and what kind of challenges that presented to you as an actor.
I don't know how he's grown. The challenge with making characters smart is that things come to an end. It's a trap in comedies. It's also a trap in dramas. In comedies, if you get a character that gets smart, they stop making fools of themselves and pulling their pants down and losing their dignity and making dumb decisions. And the same thing goes for dramas. As soon as you get smart, you call the police and the movie's over. So Marty is he's not gone the direct opposite direction, let's say like a Walter White does, where they sort of lean into it. I think he's still sort of battling with his arrogance and his hubris, that he thinks he can continue to kind of navigate through these obstacles and get his family to safety, but still kind of being proactive with it all as opposed to defensive. And so it ends up complicating things. And then, his partner, both in the show and also, in the show off screen too, myself and Laura, she's she's providing sort of that other oar in the water that has, you know, her own sort of agenda, but they do happen to kind of move in unison enough to kind of propel the story, and then kind of miss every once in a while where they become adversarial. And you know, all this stuff is just so well managed by Chris Mundy and his staff.
Mm-hmm. Maybe growth wasn't the right term to use. I guess you could say he's devolved, if depending on how you look at it.
He makes a bunch of unhelpful lateral moves that
right.
You know, there's a lot of characters that surround him that that make some more overt escalations or regressions that end up propelling the story a bit more than Marty. And I'm always attracted to playing, you know, us, you know, this sort of a normal person that is in the middle of something that is pretty abnormal, and try to kind of become that perspective for the audience, that sort of proxy for the audience, so that what you're witnessing is as relatable as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's really fascinating to watch about the show is that, you know, you talk about fish out of water. This entire family, you know, is a fish out of water in this new location, and also just in terms of their new lifestyles. You know, there's no secret to it. It's they're all they all understand what's going on, and they're all trying to adapt as they go along.
Yeah, and there's a conflict inside them about whether they should stay or go, whether they should flee or double down. That's certainly something we're dealing with now in this third season.
I wanted to ask you about the episode that you're nominated for as a director, and it's also the episode that you submitted as an actor as well. Is that correct?
I think so. That's the first episode, right?
Yes, reparations.
Yeah. You know, I'm just not good at that kind of stuff. And I think I asked Chris Mundy and I think a couple other people, you know, what episode do you think I should submit for an actor? Because you know, they all sort of blend. I can't remember which is which. And I just thought for ease, just kind of, you know, keep it the same episode. And I didn't want to have to make people watch a bunch of different episodes. There's enough stuff to watch. So I just kind of kept it, that first one.
Well, hopefully they're watching the whole season anyway, because I mean, it's
television.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, directorially, what stood out about that episode for you that made you want to submit it in the first place for your directing submission?
Well, last season I only directed 2, just the first and the second. I did that again this year. It's really my only opportunity to direct because if I were to direct any of the other episodes, we have to shut down so I can do prep. That's what we did the first year, and it's too impactful on the budget and people's schedules and stuff like that. So that was just the only choice we had was just the first or the second, and the first is an easier thing to watch, I suppose, because it's starting from a clean narrative start, as opposed to asking people to watch something that you might need to be informed by another episode that might impact the satisfaction of certain scenes and storylines. And so it seemed tidier to give that one.
Right. I wanted to ask you just a bit about, as a director, and as an actor in this show, how has your career as an actor helped you as a director and vice versa? I mean, what do you take from one to use for the other?
Well, you know, stop me if this answer gets too long. I'll try to keep it short. But you know, a lot of stuff goes into that because you're really kind of trying to draw upon everything that you've absorbed. And in my case, it's been going on a while, thank God. And I feel so fortunate that I've been able to gather all these years of sort of set experience and then have an opportunity to have the job that asks you to use all that experience. And for me as an actor, my just personal taste of acting is to not really see a lot of acting, and to have it be as naturalistic as possible, which sort of equates to as being as small as possible. And so I try to pull that into directing as well, and try not to be too showy, and try not to have too much coverage, and try not to distract from the audience as much as possible. And in fact, I love things called oneers, where there is no coverage at all, and you're just creating a perspective for the audience that tries to shape it a little bit, but gives the audience a chance to look at different things if they want to, as opposed to tapping them on the shoulder every time and telling them, oh, now you're looking this way, now you're looking that way. So I kind of take the same sort of aesthetic choice with both the acting and the directing, and that I try to not bump the audience into them watching any acting or watching any directing. But I don't know how effective I am with that, but it's certainly a creative challenge that I enjoy.
Well, it's definitely a beautiful show to look at. So, I mean, credit to your cinematographers and, you know, designers and all of that. Because, I mean, it does really, it captures a sense of visual grandeur that is not necessarily showy, but at the same time, I think it really does create a very effective atmosphere.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's a really, really talented and tasteful group of people that thankfully are in line with the same things that I'm looking for. So when I describe sort of what the production design might be or should be, or what the composition of a shot might be or should be, there's always a sort of yes, and what about this? So that yes and thing, as opposed to trying to convince people of a certain sensibility or tone or aesthetic that they might not agree with, you know.
You've got a really great cast in the show, but let me just focus on Laura Linney and Julia Garner. Working with the two of them, both as an actor and as a director, what is that collaboration like?
It's by my daughter going to camp. They are, you know, they're incredible at what they do, obviously, and they've been recognized appropriately. They don't need anything from me. I have a very, very light touch as a director when it comes to working with actors. I just know the way that I like to work as an actor, where you know, if you do your homework, you've thought about the scene and you've tried to distill down to all your ideas to the best idea, and that way you're playing that scene has to do with how you're going to play the scene that follows, which might not shoot for a few weeks. And so there's a plan that the director might not be aware of. And so I'm always assuming that the actor knows what they're doing and is doing the best possible job that they can. And so I watch what it is I think they're planning on doing and how that's going to affect everything, and encourage them to continue going down that path, and maybe with this idea help you get what you're trying to do done better. And so that's the only kind of conversation that I have with Laura or Julia or anybody. And with Laura, you know, she there's a brevity of the conversation. It was sort of finish each other's sentences. I can come in after a take and say, you know, that was great. What about if this? I mean, she might not even let me get it. I think I know what you're going to say. Let me, you know. So her taste is very much in line with mine, and I rarely need to say a thing to her or want to say a thing to her, because she's got so many great ideas and sort of self-directs. And Julia the same way. She's got a lot of great taste. She's got sort of a meter for something that would go too far or too small. She keeps herself right inside what she's capable of doing, so that you don't see any acting there either. So that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of taste. And she's a joy, and they're both two of the nicest and most professional people that you'd ever work with, and that's incredibly helpful too. So can't say enough.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, you won the SAG Award earlier this year for the show. I believe it was your career first SAG win.
Yeah.
You're also a Golden Globe winner for Arrested Development way back in 2005. A show that just keeps on chugging along. Let me ask you what that recognition for both of these shows meant for you.
The obvious, you know, it's just it's a really kind of it's a startling thing to get acknowledged by the people that you work with and around. A lot of what we do is kind of in a bubble. There are these little families that you kind of create, and then those disperse. And when you're reminded that a lot of people that you respect and some that you've worked with even say, "Hey, I saw what you did and I really liked it," it's kind of emotional. So it's an honor. It's a gift. It is at the end of the day, it is gravy, because we all bring the best we can to each job, and sometimes those projects don't coalesce. Audience doesn't like it, or it doesn't really come together narratively. It's not a good show or good film, but some are really good, and some are even better than you'd even hoped. And so when you can be a part of one of those, and then on top of that you get the kind of recognition from your peers, it's you kind of are a little stunned by it all. So that's what is really fun about all of this, and having these kinds of conversations with folks like you, it's all kind of gravy on top of it, and I feel very, very grateful.
Well, I definitely look forward to seeing what happens in season 3 of Ozark, because it's certainly binge-worthy television. Jason, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the Emmy nominations for the show.
Thank you, Paul, very much.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons below, and make sure you visit us at goldderby.com for all the latest Emmy news.